Hey there, I'm so glad that you've made it to this next part, because I know I give you a ton of information, it all accumulated in this thing that you're seeing here. And some of that was really cool and energizing, some of it would have slowed you down a little bit, have been a little bit harder to digest. And you got to keep in mind that in this journey, down this journey, you're going to have several stages that you go. And sometimes it's going to be a lot of fun, you're going to enjoy all of it, and then sometimes it's not going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a little slow, it's going to take more energy, it's going to take more focus. And this is the path that we have. So I want to honor you, I want to congratulate you on getting through that area where it required a bit more focus and it wasn't as much fun as it could be. And now we want to get in, and we just want to start with that quintessential white page or blank canvas. What are we going to do? A lot of times, beginners make a fundamental mistake, and they believe that when they're finally an artist, they'll be able to sit down and go, "Washa!" and it's going to be beautiful, gorgeous, and final, and I won't have to do a single thing to finish this. Now, I don't know what this is. You don't know what this is. Because this is nothing. Because the process of creation isn't the process of vomiting it out, completely done. That is not the way it happens. It happens through birthing. It happens through stages. It happens through development. You did not land on this planet as awesome as you are right now from scratch. At one point, you were pooping your pants. At one point, you couldn't even say hello. At one point, you could barely hold your head up. And over the course of years, yes, it took you years to stop pooping your pants. Years. Think about that. Think about what you expect yourself to do today and how quickly you expect things to happen. And yet you were crapping your pants well into 2 years old. It took you months to be able to hold your head up and not have it flop around. And yet we expect ourselves to do things from scratch right away. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Give yourself the honor, the integrity of recognizing this journey, and that you're making progress on this journey, and progress is what we're looking for. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking to simply grow. So, what are we going to do? We're looking at a blank canvas. What are we going to do? Well, you've got to start with an idea. Okay? An idea could be a visual shape. It could be that, hey, I got this idea of something that's kind of a little like that, and then it goes a little like, I just got this idea. I don't know exactly what that is. This is something that you'll see in film development, for example. Somebody will come in and they'll just be like, I don't know what this is, but this is the basic thumbnail. Alright, so somebody like James Klein or Dylan Cole, they might have this visual idea, and then they take this idea and they'll give it to a member of the team, and they'll say, hey, you know what? Turn that into something. Right? But it starts with a visual idea. It might start with a word, like rune or city. And then once you start with this word, you need to turn that word into a visual idea, right? The visual idea is actually a bit of an advanced thing, an advanced place for us to start. Most of us are going to start with words because you've been using words your entire life. Words have been the source of success for you. They're the most important thing for you to learn right off the bat. You spend years, decades learning words, expanding your vocabulary, because that gives you success. It helps you talk and communicate and build a life from it. So most of the time, you're not going to start with a visual like this. You're going to start with a word, and that is great. So What do you do when you start with the word, with some word? Well, Google it. Google it. Runes. Take a look, right? What did they used to do back in the traditional era? Well, they would go hiking. You don't have to go hiking, you have to Google it. But literally, they would go hiking and spend weeks out in nature. Great, sounds nice, very romantic, totally unrealistic, not possible. Your art director comes in and says, hey, we need this landscape, we need some ruins. Are they going to then fund a trip for you to go to Europe to go study ruins for 6 months to a year? How long was Peter Paul Rubens' trip in Florence? No, they're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to create this ruins in the next day, 2 days, or week. Google it, and then we start to go somewhere, right? And then people get caught up in this idea of photo bashing or not photo bashing, and then, hey, I don't know, do I just take this image and I'm going to just copy this image and then just paste this image in here, and then am I cheating, and maybe what I'll do is, let's just erase out of that, and I'll come in here and I'll erase all of this stuff, and maybe I'll come and I'll put something else in here, and I'll throw in an environment and all of that, and is that really creating artwork? And people get their panties in a bunch sitting there trying to figure this crap out. You know what? Don't do that either. That's not worth our time. All right, what's going to be worth our time is going out there and training ourselves, building the muscle to be able to design. And so that's what we're going to do right now. That's what I want to show you now in this section. So we're going to get in here and we're going to pick one of these. I've already picked it out for you. And let's see if we can go back to it. There we go. We're going to just drop on down, and I want to show you the process to start to figure out something. We're going to take this one. Now, if you want, let me just open this in another window. You can screen capture this if you want, but I'm going to use the smaller version. Because most important to what I want to do right now is I want to show you process. There are two different places for us to operate right now. Okay, there's two different places. So I want to just put this out here. There's what I call the library. You could also call this the gym. And then there's the arena, right? And the arena is where you got to go and you got to produce. The main rule in the arena is make something happen. Okay? The main rule in the library, so this is make happen. And then over here, this is learn, train, fail. You don't want to fail here. Failure in the arena, that's not what we're going for. But over here, our success in the arena is going to be based on how often we allow ourselves to fail in the training room, how often we chase failure, chasing success and really making that as hard as possible for ourselves. So we're over here in the library, in the gym, in our skill lab, developing things. And the idea that we want to be really focused on now is how do we get in and start to develop our visual language? How do we make it so that we go from, hey, I've said the word ruin, to, all right, now I have a visual language of something that'll be shaped like that, and it'll come down of this nature. The way you move from the word to the visual is you train for it, okay? And one of the best ways to train for that is just get in there, Google it, and you start to work this into your vocabulary. So we're going to go through this process of pulling this imagery into some sketch so that it becomes part of our neurology. So I know what you're saying right now. You're saying, Ryan, stop talking. Show me what the hell you want me to do. I'm going to show you. Now, how do you take this image and start to recreate it? Do you take your really crystal clear measurements. Let's say we'll go in and I'm just going to do this on the screen real quick. We'll go, okay, so we're going to take this measurement to this measurement, and then I'll plot out a point, and then I'll say, okay, so here to here, and then, okay, so that point is about like that point, and then I'll take my straight lines down, and then I'll do the hokey pokey, and I'll turn myself around, and that's what it's all about. Go through this and start to really check these measurements, and what's that? That's about the same as this point, so these are the same, and I'm going to check it and extend that slightly, and we work this, right? The way in which you prepare and the way in which you start, your process is what we're training here. It's the tiny steps before your finished image. Okay, does working with this level of measurements and line, does this help you, or does this start to hurt you? Does this start to close you off? Because the most important thing for you to keep in mind in this process is this idea of open versus closed. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about this as a journey. You're going from open to closed. A lot of classical training will teach you to use closed form tools. Closed form tools are things like straight lines. Lines close things off, they delineate things. Open form is more gestural, more movement, more atmospheric, right? And we're really moving from this idea of atmospheric to delineated, to outlined. Here, everything is about the atmosphere. Here, everything is about the outline. In open form, you can't tell, is this the pillar or is that the sky? If you're doing something like Bouguereau or Jean-Jacques Louis David, neoclassicalism, you're like, hey, that's column, that's sky. We know exactly where they are. And this is a big difference, right? So you come in here and you say Turner, painter, and you take a look at some of these and you're like, well, what is that? Where's the ground? Where's the column? Where's the mountain? Where's the sky? Where's the boat? Is that the boat and the ocean? And then where's the ocean and the castle or whatever that is? It's very open and atmospheric. History is replete with artists moving from open to closed, or doing just open or doing just closed. But the truth is that you and I need to learn to master this as a journey. We need to master this as a journey where we are moving from open to closed, and we are using all the tools within our toolbox to make that happen. So here I am. I want to show you. Now we're going to get to the meat of this. We're going to get to the meat of this now. You ready? I want to show you a couple of different ways, or really just one way, that I would use to develop a poor man's perspective, as well as establish the shape and the proportion and all of that to start to figure out what this is. Okay, first thing I would do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to lower the opacity of that stroke a little bit, so it's at 50%. There you go, maybe a little lower. Sometimes flow is a good thing to reduce. And I'll increase this a little bit so that it's not so tiny, right? A tiny line starts to be, way too precise. So here we go. I'm going to do this again. Now, what I'm trying to do is capture the overall gesture, space, and shape of this. And there's multiple ways that we do it. One of the ways I want to do is I want to show you that with a poor man's perspective. So we're going to come in here and I'm going to be like, well, yeah, that's about like that, and it's about like that, and then yeah, it's about like that. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start to just feel these lines out and feel that out, and I'm trying to establish a feeling in my bones that something is fitting. And I'm feeling the key thing here, and the most important thing is that you really start to establish a feeling in your bones about this. Establish a feeling in your bones when this is too tall or not out enough or too far. Now, you saw two distinct things happen here, so I want to go over these again. you saw two distinct things happen. What you saw me do is you saw me start to establish a space with two ovals. Let's do that over here. My space is like, huh, and then, huh, right? And I'll use those words inside my mind. I'm really trying to establish some boundaries, top and bottom. I'm not trying to establish, hey, the exact column is right here. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm establishing a visual space. And then once I have that visual space, then I go in and I start to think about, okay, and I start to think about, what? What am I using right now? What am I using right now? I started out with these ovals, and now I've moved to straights. Not only did I move to straights, but I used gestural straights. So the line isn't, it's not, I want to make that perfect. It's boom, da, da. Okay? This is really important. Watch, you can almost see this happening. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down. Right? It's a, I'm feeling the line, I got it. I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it, I got it. That's what we're doing here. This is this process of putting it in the bones, in your marrow, right? In your just in your body. That's what we're trying to do here, because you want to feel mistakes in your body. You don't want to see mistakes with your eyes. If the mistake has to travel from your eyes into some part of your brain, and then from there into your head to make a judgment like, hey, this is right, this is wrong, you know what? How much time has elapsed? That's not what we want to do. We want to feel it instantly, a second, nanosecond, before our eyes even have been able to make a judgment. We want to feel it inside our bones. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. I got to correct. So we make it messy like this, right? And this is what's important. Later on, you can go in and do some assessment and do measurements and all of that. But you want, at this stage, you want things to be wrong. And you want to know when they're wrong, right? We're training ourselves, okay? So take a second, you get something like this, and you're just going to look back and forth, and you're just going to try to see if you can feel it. Not necessarily know exactly what's wrong, because the second you know exactly what's wrong, chances are you actually got the wrong thing. You can't trust your eyes, your brain, your judgments. You got to trust your gut. Okay? So I'm looking back and forth, right? And I'm trying to feel it, and I'm like, yeah, something is wrong. You know, so let's go through this process. Okay? Back into it. Close that out. There we go. All right, so wada. And I'm going to notice that now this is a slightly different process. So I'm going to try to close in on this as a shape and then this as a shape. Before, you notice I made it really wide, and then I don't know if you caught it, but my shape was actually wide. So and out, right? And I'm focused on a couple of different things. I'm focused on width and height, and I'm focused on width and height. That's why I like ovals, is because you get the width and height, but nothing is exact or perfect or exactly that thing. It's just like, hey, this is kind of roughly the shape. That's what I love about this. So now I can go back and take into this shape. I can go, okay, bada bing, and bada bing, and then bada ba. Yeah, okay, shoot, shoot, shoot. There we go. Notice I've just moved that line, and now I'm going to shoot out and get this, and get that, and move it in, and throw that in, and I'm going to work this. Okay, now I'll come and I'm going to just take some perspective lines, like that, right? And I'll take a perspective line, and then I'm going to start to work the shadow area and the shadow area. And I start to feel like, how close are these? So you see my hands moving from left to right, right? And I don't care if it gets messy. That's my job's not to make this perfect, right? I'm in the training room. My job is to fail and succeed and fail and succeed and fail and succeed. So if it doesn't look pretty, well, that's totally fine. Because I tell you what, it's going to look pretty after a little while. I'm going to get this down, right? And if you want, you come in here and you use the eraser and you start to get rid of some of this nonsense. And there you go. Now, I'm going to come in here and do the bell, and what am I going to do this bell? I'm going to do those ellipses. And then just the simple exercise we did a while ago, right? Bada bing. Feel it. Feel it in your bones. Look at that. Then you pick these axes lines. You're like, hey, this and this, where do they line up? So you see mine didn't line up. So I pick these little axis lines and I'm like, yeah, that's not right. So I'm going to move that in and I'm going to adjust. Yeah. There we go. And I'm trying to feel, how does this space relate to this space? And I'm trying to, again, feel it in the bones. You got to feel this in your bones. That's why we work fast like this, with these crazy lines. I'm trying to feel it. Voila. Okay. Now, this cylinder, the ring, the thing, it's not feeling right. I felt like something was a little wrong, so I'm just going to come in here and you see a da-da-da. There we go. And there we go. And I'll move it down. Let me increase that. But big, broad lines are going to be the key thing for us. Go in there and try to make this happen. All right? So I want you to do this as well. Try these exercises and don't worry about making this perfect. And then do it again. Try to get things right from this level. And then you come in, you're like, okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll try the shadow side here, and then I'll do a straight line, and then I'll do the shadow side here, and then there, and then I'll kind of come in, and now we might do something like focus on negative space. And by that I mean we focus on that shape right in there. And how that shape is actually quite similar to these shapes. So we want to be in there and feeling that and be like, okay, yeah, so that's definitely good. Move that. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Yeah. And then just get in here and try to create that line. Let's get rid of that guideline. Okay. And then I'm going to come in and use my cylinder to create form. Look at that. How quickly that, I just need to put a couple of lines in to start to make that make sense. But because I'm using that simplified form of a cylinder, a lot of magic just gets programmed into it, which I think is just fantastic. And then I'm going to come in here and start to be a little bit more specific. Pull this in, and then pull that down. And here's the next agenda I got for you. Because a lot of times people will look at their drawing and they'll say, yeah, this is really messy. It's really kind of a crappy drawing. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let me change this color a little bit. The technique or the process that people will use to get better is that they'll start to slow down. they'll start to slow down, or they'll start to make more specific measurements. I had a teacher in college that would force us to literally draw or do the measurement of an eye and then go out and then go down and then go down. And then once you had that, all this measurement out, then you could go in and you could say, yeah, da, da, and then you could start to connect the dots. Right? And then once you had those dots connected, then you just go and you throw yourself off a cliff. And I'd be like, oh my God, I can't do this. It's insane. What is going on? I need to go in and say, hey, there's an eye and there's this, and then yeah, it looks like shit, but you know what? Lower the opacity if you want. Figure out a way to work that gesture, or if you're in charcoal, you simply wipe that out, and then you go in and you start to establish more of the specific stuff. You know? If you're in charcoal, you just wipe it out and you come in and you go back in and you start to establish things. Let's get rid of that. Think of it in terms of layers and in terms of process. Again, one of the biggest mistakes artists will make is they forget process and they think, I got to do this, I got to be that, I got to be perfect, I got to develop the skill so that I can just be awesome out of the gate. The only way to be awesome out of the gate is to suck, is to struggle, and to eventually acknowledge that, you know what, it's just not going to happen. Because being awesome out of the gate really is a judgment somebody makes. And when you are the one working, you know how hard this is. You know how good you can be. You know how much further you have to go. Awesome out of the gate is a judgment somebody else makes watching you struggle. It's always that way. Awesome out of the gate is a judgment somebody else makes watching you struggle. They just can't see you struggle because they're not that good. But if you're that good, you know that this is always a struggle. This is always something that you are trying to be better at. Now, I gave you a lot of information in this video. A lot of information. You can see now, actually, I'm picking up on one of the different things. Notice how this comes up and then it drops down, and you get that, right? In the first part of it, I didn't get it because it also wasn't essential. Now you see me, I'm starting to go in and be a little bit more blocky and specific in my straight edges. And that's what I want. I want to slowly get into these things. Slowly get into the perfection of it. Just slowly build it. All right. Go easy on yourself and let yourself make this happen and struggle and make something beautiful flow. Use this simple example and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, I'm using a special brush right now. I think I'm using the Ultimate Brush Pen by Kyle, right? So that's why I'm getting this kind of line. So these are all things that you got to think about. Your tools, for example, these are great tools. Some of the best, I think, and constant updates. So it's something to consider. Otherwise, just use the normal Photoshop stuff. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next video, but I will see you after you do this exercise. And use this or use a different one. And remember the process. Please remember the process. You need to start to establish space. Then after you've established space, then you can go in and start to establish form. Okay? The space needs to exist first. The form are these straight lines. The space are these ovals. Make that happen. And then over time, it just gets to be where you don't really... These lines are very light. You do something like this. Or even, let's do it even lighter than that. Or maybe this just gets held inside your head, and you've already kind of done it. And now you just kind of come in, and you only do a couple of lines, and now a couple of guidelines, and everything just gets Everything just gets cleaner for you, right? But don't do this out of the bat. I want you to get in there and start to make an absolute mess out of things and really expand. Because, see, this is too precious. This is way too precious. Get in there, make a mess out of this, and slowly over time, you just start getting cleaner. But let the process work. Let it work. You see masters doing this. You see guys that get paid hundreds of $1,000s a year and that work with the greats, Spielberg, work with Cameron, work with all of these guys. You see them when they start, they make a mess. Make a mess. If you don't make the mess now, you're not going to grow. I'm telling you flat, straight, right now. Make the mess. My challenge to you is make that mess. I know it's a long video, so start making the mess.